what's up guys? This is Alex. Thanks for checking out my channel. Today I'm going up to Wisconsin again to help my friend Mike work on his Volkswagen GTI. It's been a while since his car has been on the road, so today we are going to be replacing all of the brakes, the pads and rotors, and replacing a couple valves to get it driving and working properly again. So let's get on the road. All right, just got to Mike's. Not your place. I just got to Adam's house to work on Mike's car. Adam was gracious enough to lend his garage to us because Mike doesn't really have all the tools he needs to get the job done. So Adam already had a VW at one point, so we were able to get his garage going. Mike was just telling me about his car and all the stuff that he's done to it over the years and some problems that he's had with it. It's actually really clean. 2006 GTI. He's had some issues with it over the years with boost leaks, other VW related problems. He has some body work that he needs to get done, unfortunately, on this car. He got hit. He had a small little fender bender in the right rear. And there's a little bit of a bump here on the front right as well. But otherwise the car is really nice and it's been garage kept for a really long time. And how many miles are on it, Mike?
72,000.
72,000. So that's pretty good. That's actually how many I had of my Civic before I sold it. He wants to get back on the road and start driving again because it has been sitting in a garage for what, a year plus, maybe longer at this point?
Three and a half years.
3.5 years?
3.5 years.
Holy
last
smokes.
time I registered it was 19. That was the last time
Wow.
I drove it.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, how can you go that long without driving this thing? I mean, I used to love this thing.
Life.
Life. I thought you said wife at first. One of the cool things about this car is it's got this cool plaid interior, and he left it pretty stock except for a boost gauge that we put in, man, probably close to 10 years ago at this point. And one thing that sucks is Mike's car decided to drop its headliner this morning as he was driving here. So a new problem has arisen that he'll have to tackle. So we're gonna do brakes, pads, and rotors. We're going to do a diverter valve, and then we're gonna do a PCV delete. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
PCV delete? Okay. All right, Mike, tell me what you have done to this car or what you did over the years, if you can remember everything.
New speed intake. We have a 3-inch downpipe. I got ST Performance coilovers, new speed, front mount intercooler. I got the full APR software tune.
You had a lot of APR stuff, right? If I recall
it's
correctly.
Mostly either that or new speed. I did have the new fuel pump internals, new cam follower, new cam. Those are unfortunately, I just did stock replacements on them.
Wasn't there with the tune, you did like a stage? You're like a stage something. What is the stage you're at?
I'm APR stage 2.
APR stage 2, right? Okay, I remember that from back in the day where they had the like a build sheet laid out for. You could put in X amount of parts and then get this tuned by an APR licensed technician, and then you would have this amount of horsepower and torque, kind of like a pre-built thing. And you have don't you have like a straight piped exhaust on this thing? Or did you get an exhaust finally?
I have a downpipe, there's no resonator, there's no cat.
So it's just loud AF.
Yeah. It can be loud.
I remember this thing being loud. Cool. Well, we're gonna get it up in the air and start taking the wheels off, and then I will probably do some little digging into what we need to do for the brakes.
Okay. I'm like,
Yeah, that's the diverter valve.
What two is like me before. What two is like me before. What two is like me before. What two is like me before.
We're learning that jacking up a Volkswagen in a garage is a pain. And we're over here, we spent the last 15 minutes trying to figure out how to jack this car up, but apparently we have a way, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so apparently on these GTIs, or probably all Volkswagens this year, right? Something like that.
No, I don't know. I mean, the main problem is that I think all that stuff is in
So we have it jacked up by the, probably the lower control arm bushing on the subframe, where it mounts, yeah. And it's funny because I watched a random YouTube video about doing brakes and they're like, do not jack up by the suspension parts or the subframe. They're specifically pointing out these areas. And I was like, okay, I guess we can't do that. But there it is, people. So we're gonna do the other side and then get these wheels off finally.
Yeah, you're right. That was like that. Was it? Yeah.
So these brakes are interesting. They have a clamp on them to hold the caliper together and the brake pads. They take a torque spit to come off. Let's see how that goes. Cool. We gotta take off these first. There's some things in the back, right here, to remove the slides for the calipers. And then we should be able to take off the caliper and the pads. So we gotta start with these little clips first. We were able to get the caliper slides out. They're interesting. You just had to keep unscrewing them forever. It's a H7 Allen key that was able to pull this out. And so we got the caliper off. Pads are out. Caliper's hanging. And we just need to take off this caliper bracket, and then we can work on trying to remove this screw, which appears to be stripped. And we might have to do a little cutting, dremeling to figure out to get it off. So
while Mike and Adam attempted to remove the rotor screw from the other side, I moved on with prepping the left front for new parts. It wasn't too long before we found out we were in big trouble.
So Mike and Adam went over to the auto parts store to get some new drill bits, some screws for the rotors. The reason that you cannot have missing screws on these hubs for the rotors, because the lug nuts actually line up through the rotors and screw into the hub like this. So if you don't have a screw to line up your rotor, you're gonna have to like move your rotor and your wheel at the same time to line everything up just to screw it in. Which isn't a huge deal if we can't get it to work, but at the end of the day, you know, trying to make it back to stock as possible. We don't want to half-ass it. So they went to the hardware store. I'm gonna keep working on the other side of the brakes. Maybe I'll even get into the diverter valve before they get back. We'll see.
And as it seems to go when working on cars, wishful thinking only leads to disappointment. Not only did I never get to work on the diverter valve, but we made a stupid mistake which ended up costing us an unnecessary amount of time.
Okay, we got the brakes back together on the front. We ended up not being able to screw out the screw on the rotor. It was the easy out we used to get out the screw that was all cut off in there and broken off. Ended up breaking inside of the screw. So then we're really screwed because that's pretty hardened steel. So we tried to drill out the easy out, but it didn't work at all. Now we are putting the brake back together, and unfortunately on the front right side, we're gonna have to line up the rotor and the wheel in order to get the wheel back on properly. But once it's on, it'll be secure. It's not gonna be a safety issue at all. We were able to get the screw back in this one. So here's the new rotor and pads back together. So the other side looks just the same. Mike's right now is Mike's struggling to get everything lined up. He's having a great time, right, Mike?
Terrible.
He's having a terrible time. He has learned what it's like to work on a Volkswagen, and he now hates his car. So we don't know if we're going to be able to get the diverter valve done, which is something that Mike really wanted to get done. We still have to do the brakes in the rear, and he's got to go. He's running out of time, so he's kind of rushing right now. We'll see what we can get done for the rest of the day.
A few moments later.
Update. We ran into a problem. Found out after looking at the rotors that we put the rear rotors on the front brakes. So that was bad. So had to go back and take the calipers apart and put the correct rotors on. I don't know how that happened. I think we were just flustered and probably trying to get this job done really quick. And we just kind of grabbed the first rotor we had and didn't think twice. So at least it's corrected and we got it all done. So we got the brakes back together with the correct rotors. Here's the other side. We got the front back together. We still have to do the rears, but we already started working on them, and they started to come apart a little bit better than the actual front rotors did. So Mike had to leave because he had a family event he needed to go to, so he wasn't able to stay and help me. So, but I understand, you know, he had to go, and I came up here, you know, to help him do this. So I'm gonna stay here and get the job done. Adam is willingly going to help me out too and finish up the brake job. So big thanks to him to come through last minute. I mean, it is his garage. We need to get this car out of here, so I feel bad leaving it in here. But I don't think it's going to take too long to get the brakes done. I don't think we're going to be able to get the PCV valve delete or the diverter valve done, but the brakes will be done. So that's what happens when you work on cars. You never know how long it's going to take. So I got the right rear brake caliper and rotor back on, and
Can
yeah,
we talk about
the abandoned man,
abandonment?
the abandonment.
I think we should discuss it.
I did discuss it briefly, but would you like to elaborate?
I'd like to elaborate. The person are renting my garage for this event, free of charge. Very nominal fee for this rental. The person whose car we're working on, by the way, none of us even like Volkswagens, left. So there's that. Michael, you failed us. You owe us forever.
There you have it.
Especially Alex. I mean, not really. I don't want to say us because, you know, Alex is
Forever indebted. So I ran into an issue with the right rear caliper because Volkswagen has this terrible design where the piston has two indents, but you can't get a flat screwdriver in there to turn it. You have to have some special tool or something. So we found a way to use a channel lock and a vice grips to eventually get it to turn. Thank God it wasn't seized, but we got it to turn in. So it took me forever to turn the thing, probably about a good half hour of turning to finally compress the piston and get the rotor on and the caliper in completely. So we're all done on this side. Adam is starting the other side, and we will be done.
Are these like ears? Just sheared.
It's getting pretty late, and we struggled with the other side of the car now. We had another rotor screw that would not come out. We went down the road of drilling it out after attempting to get it out with like an impact driver. An impact driver meant for getting out those rotor screws. And then we drilled it out, which was successful. And then we put an easy out into the screw, which was able to get the tip of the tip of the screw out, but then it failed when we got to the hub. And as you can see, the easy out broke inside of the hub. Now we have another wheel that's going to be with a floating rotor. No big deal. It's just going to be a pain to get the wheel on. Not that hard. It's just more work. But we're going to keep moving and get this last wheel done, and then we can finally finish. So Adam and I are giving up for the evening because we don't have the tool. We can't get it in.
As tears stream down our faces, we realize this became a 2-day job. The Volkswagen and Audi rear calipers are designed with a twisting piston, meaning when you push on the brakes, the piston will spin in a circular motion and compress the pads. In order to put the new brake pads in, we need to push the piston back into the caliper to make room. The only problem is, the piston was so far out of the caliper, we could not get it back in. Our only option was to rent or purchase a special tool, which would apply pressure to the back of the caliper while turning the piston to force it back in.
Mike's gonna pick up the tool in the morning, and we are going to work on his car more tomorrow.
And what do we
Hooray!
believe? I think it's important to say what we believe happened. Based on internet research, apparently like that piston that's in the rear brakes that needs to be, if the pads get too far, that piston can work its way out. And so now I think what we need to do is we need to have the actual tool so we can push it back in and apply pressure as we And if that doesn't work, then we're into a new caliper territory. Mike's gonna go ballistic.
We are recording day 2 of Mike's GTI. So yesterday, Mike went over to our friend Stefan's house to pick up the necessary tool for the brake caliper. So Adam here had already done it by the time I was done, but it went really quick, which is awesome. He's gonna show how he did this here.
So this, I'm trying to get a good view of this here. There you go. So this little guy just fits into there. Okay. And then this over here goes up against there, and there's a little pad that sits here so that it applies pressure and spins at the same time, which is what we needed because I think that piston was just backed off too far. Which is interesting that it didn't do it on the other side either. Because I feel like the pads would be basically equal, but who knows? It might have just been close and one side was worse than the other. The other thing to note is that these tools, one of them has a reverse thread. There's 2 of them in this kit. So I started off, of course, with the wrong one because it was 50-50. Yeah, once you have that, it made it literally a 2-minute affair, which is pretty great. And that just goes to show.
Amazing.
Right tool.
Yeah, the right tool for the right job.
It's amazing what can happen when you have the right tool.
Yeah, here's the kit right here. Thank you, Stefan. You weren't useless this time for
Shout out to
helping. So
Stefan.
shout out to Stefan. He actually did something.
Nice.
He contributed. So we're super happy that that's done. I think that we have enough time to get the diverter valve done as well. Mike has to be at work in a little bit, so it
I
should
can show up a little late.
you can show up a little late.
I already gave my dad the deets that he might have to open the bar.
The deets. Okay.
Get to cranking. And by we, I mean you, and I think I'm gonna go somewhere with my children.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna start putting this caliper back together, and it should be pretty easy. And then we'll start working on the diverter valve. Okay, so I'm on the ground in my favorite position underneath the car. That's not true. Mike's laughing at me. I am going to try and show the diverter valve and where that is because we completed the brakes and that's all done, wheels back on. So next up is the diverter valve and then we'll be done with the GTI. So see if I can show where this is. That valve right there is the diverter valve. Apparently the diaphragm within the valve goes bad or tears or something where when you're building boosts, it tends to lead to boost leak issues, which is something that Mike has had an issue with. So he decided to go ahead and get the upgraded version of this valve and replace it. We just have to get off this clip, the VAG connector, whatever it is. and it's 3 bolts after that. I believe they're 4 or 5 millimeter Allen keys. Have to check on that once we get to that point. So I'm gonna see if I can get this clip off and then go from there. So we got the diverter valve out. The 3 screws. The top one was kind of difficult to get out, but the other 2 came out pretty easily. You just need I'll show you what we used. 1/4-inch socket and then a number 5 Allen key. And Mike was looking at the diverter valve here, and he says that according to normal problems, he says he thinks it isn't that bad, but
I don't know. This might even be the newer one. I'm not sure. Well, whatever.
Either way, we got a new one anyway, so we're gonna throw it in. No harm, no foul there. So if it does fix his issues, then great. Otherwise, he's gonna be back to the drawing board with boost leak problems. Which also could be PCV valve, right? I mean, technically.
Yeah.
So maybe you just need to replace your PCV valve. PCV valve is actually right in the top, which is, I believe, right here, right, Mike?
What?
The PCV valve?
Yep, that's it. That circular piece thing.
Okay. So it's really easy to get to. So hopefully he can just get a new valve and throw that in because apparently that's what you do when they go bad. You just buy a new one right away. So, I'm gonna throw in this new valve and then we'll start getting it down on the ground. Joel just shows up in his big blue Jeep.
Unbelievable.
It's such a bright blue Jeep.
I like it. Beefy.
So beefy and blue. So Joel came by. He's probably going to give us some emotional support, but we needed that yesterday. He was here yesterday. I didn't get him on camera, but yeah, with the rotors. Joel actually is the one that caught the rotor issue, so we're glad he was here. Diverter valve is in, and we're going to now. Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah.
I was double checking.
There's been a couple times where I haven't been recording. I've done the intro this morning twice. We just need to get this thing back on the ground and torque the lugs on the wheels, and we'll be driving. those things time will tell if you can feel over a boost leak when you can really like get on it like on the highway or something like that.
Mike was extremely happy to have his weekend car back on the road after 3.5 years. He has plenty of work left to do, but at least it's out of the garage and driving. Big thanks again to Adam for letting us take over his garage for an entire weekend to tackle this thing. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe to support my channel. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.